the critical time, and it's titled exactly right, America's Competitiveness Through High School Reform. As I was coming up here today, I was listening to the radio. The market was dropping somewhat by 5 o'clock. Who knows whether it'll be down? It will be down a few points. But also, before we go home from this hearing today, the human capital market will have dropped 7,000. 7,000 kids will have dropped out of high school before we go home, and they will drop out each and every school day of the year. That's about 1.2 million. There's a human capital cost. And so my colleagues at this panel have spoken eloquently and well and have made the case, and taken a lot of my testimony, about the moral impact of dropouts. So I'm going to talk some about the economic impact as well. Because 60% of current jobs today require education beyond high school, post-secondary education. Our nation's economic competitiveness is inextricably linked to how well we educate our citizens. And in an information age economy, education is the main currency. Now, this committee has been the leader, and I want to thank you. You have been the leader in putting high school issues and dropouts on the national agenda, starting several years ago. The most recent scream for help for high schools came last week with the release of the National Assessment of Educational Progress, or NAEP, long-term trends. Despite education performance gains by 9- and 13-year-olds, essentially no progress has been made since 1971 by 17-year-olds. If this flat trend line were an electrocardiogram, the emergency room doctor would be applying the defibrillator. And perhaps that's what the education stimulus package is about. The state of our high schools has been noted already, is reflected in international comparisons. Our 15-year-olds, 25th in math, 21st in science, 15th in reading literacy, 24th in problem solving, supposedly our strong suit. And that's compared with the 30 other industrialized nations that we compete with. The reason we've declined in these comparisons isn't because we're educating worse, it's because other nations are now educating much better. And make no mistake, how we fare in international education comparisons will soon correspond directly to how we fare in international economic comparisons. Now, there are two groups affected when someone drops out. First, the individual himself or herself, and then the rest of society. We know that, according to the Department of Labor, in the coming years, 90% of new high-growth, high-wage jobs require some post-secondary education. 60% of current jobs, as I mentioned, already do. Before I left office in 2004, I visited many of the industries, traditional industries in West Virginia that I'd worked with since I graduated from high school in 1966. I didn't need a high school diploma to get a good-paying job in coal mines, the steel mills, or the chemical plants. Today, I couldn't get in any one of those without post-secondary education. So currently, this Congress is grappling with massive economic problems. And quite frankly, they seem intractable. The enormous cost, but I have to point out the enormous cost of restructuring the financial institutions, the banks, the auto industry, even AIG. Total all of those up, it is still less than the combined cost of 5 years of dropouts in this country. And so, and as my colleagues here in this panel have pointed out, and as many members on this committee have pointed out, in this case, this economic problem of dropouts, we know what to do. It is whether or not we have the will. The first thing I would suggest is reauthorizing ESEA. High schools aren't in the ESEA, and until ESEA is reauthorized, they won't be. Only 10% of Title I dollars end up in high schools. The carrot and the stick is gone. Secretary Spellings pointed out in a recent op-ed, high schools really weren't a part of the current NCLB. We also believe we have to get accountability right. That means the state-led effort to develop common standards. So now there's an overarching set of standards that the states have agreed to, internationally benchmarked. Now everybody's on equal footing as to what it is our kids are supposed to learn. And incidentally, and Congressman Scott has introduced this, and Congressman Castle has spoken to it, the need for true graduation rate accountability, so that all kids are graduation is measured the same way. To address the needs of middle and high schools, we believe that, as I say, in an ESEA reauthorization, high common standards, the Every Student Counts Act, to drive high school improvements, supporting Congressman Nina Hosa's Graduation Promise Act, targeting the lowest performing high schools, Bob Balfonte's dropout factories, where there are plans at the school and district level to turn them around. The Alliance also supports the Secondary School Innovation Fund, introduced by Congressman Loebsack in part of the existing stimulus package. NAEP scores show literacy is so critical, and so that's so important that Congressman Yarmouth's, Polis's, and Platz's bill to bring comprehensive literacy to secondary students, and of course middle schools, and Congressman Grijalva's bill. And dare I forget, and I can't forget, Congressman Holt's bill on metrics. We have to have good data so that we know what we're doing. And so all of this is to say, we know, and you know what to do. This committee has the opportunity to truly make a difference in what has been as intractable and even more so a problem than many of the others that you face. But this year, this time, we could actually do something. And this time, instead of losing another decade, as the NAEP trend lines say, we could make sure that no generation is left behind. Thank you very much.